think marriage is an incredible institution, but
it's a sacred institution, man.
You do it like 2/5 through your life. You know, it's like, in theory, like a ton more very important milestones should occur after that. You would hope. It's very early.
I want to get married just so I can get divorced and get married again, you know, just so I can experience that joy multiple times.
Hello, De Niro Nation, and welcome to Our Hero De Niro, the only podcast watching and recapping Robert De Niro's entire filmography in random order. I'm Mike, joined as ever by my co-host, Mike.
No relation.
No relation indeed. And today we are here to discuss the 2012 American drama film, Being Flynn, directed by Paul Weitz and starring Robert De Niro, Julianne Moore, and Paul Dano. Mike, you ever heard of this film before we rolled it for the pod?
No, and it's Dano. It's Paul Dano.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. That's why I said it.
Yeah. Okay, that's crazy. So it's interesting. I didn't know that. And
Yeah,
that's kind of fascinating. Like I feel like I often mispronounce things, but they're things that I credibly have a justification for having never heard anyone with any competence say aloud. But Paul Dano, apparently, is an extremely famous and beloved modern actor. And I feel like I've heard many people say his name, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone pronounce it correctly. That's very interesting.
I don't know if I have ever heard someone pronounce his name out loud, but I did actually look it up after watching this film to make sure I had it correct. That's the sort of care and attention I put into this podcast every single week.
I live fact checked it on the air just now. I looked at the phonetic spelling on Wikipedia, and it is indeed Dano. So I've been schooled. Did you answer my question about whether you'd heard of the film? I'm not sure.
No, I have not heard of the film.
Okay, yeah, you may have answered it, but I was so distracted by the totality of my wrongness that I didn't realize. So it's based on a memoir, Another Bullshit Night in Suck City, which is a much better name for something than Being Flynn. So that's a real shame. And I just want to talk about this Paul Weitz gentleman a little bit because he's got quite a pedigree, even though I've never seen anything else that he's done. So this gentleman also directed American Pie. He wrote the 1998 DreamWorks response to A Bug's Life, Ants. You ever see that film?
I watched that in theaters. I vaguely remember it.
Yep. Were the ants kind of sexualized in that film? Am I remembering correctly? Was that movie where it was like kind of weird that they made the ants kind of sexy? Like that was commentary about it?
Did that imprint on you somehow? And in terms of your like psychosexual development, do you get a boner?
It's totally possible. Yeah, I've like kind of retroactively like corrected this to protect my ego as having been something that I read memes about online, but it's just actually that I was really aroused by seeing ants in 1998 in theaters. So it was a formative sexual experience for me. And he also, very exciting to read this. So while Mike and I were chatting before the episode, directed 2010's Little Fockers, which just by sheer definition of how many episodes of the podcast are left, we will be watching soon for this podcast. So this will not be the final Paul Weitz film. This film, I was not able to find any information on its budget, but I have to assume, based on the fact that it has two pretty big actors in it, Robert De Niro and Paul Dano, that it was an enormous box office flop. It only made $540,000 at the box office. I have to imagine it cost at least 10 times that much to produce. Not good. Do you have anything else you'd like to say about this film before we get into the recap, Mike?
No, I think it's interesting that it's based on a memoir. The title, Another Bullshit Night in Suck City, it is certainly a more memorable title than Being Flynn, but it has a bit of millennial cringe to it. That memoir came out in 2004, and this film came out in 2012, and I'm really excited to kind of get into the tone of the film and its plot, the way it's all conveyed to us as viewers, as film buffs, film podcasters.
I'm fascinated to discuss it because off the air before we started recording, Mike described this film to me as a dramedy, which was not the way that I perceived it at all. I never laughed once during this film. I don't think I even really chuckled at all during this film. I think now, as I think about it, I think I understand like what you perceived as having been intended to be comedic, but I think it's just kind of dark. Honestly, I don't know.
Whether or not you laugh at a film, it does not matter because you never laugh at films. Like, you didn't laugh at Machete. Would you argue that
I
that
love to
wasn't
laugh.
intended to be a comedy?
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
I think there were a lot of moments in this film that were played for comedy. He has, let's just get into it, right? Let's just talk about it.
Let's just get into it. All right. So the film opens. It's a Tribeca production. And right away, we get some De Niro narration. He is listing classic American writers and saying that he's one of them. He's a really great writer. His name is Jonathan Flynn. Everything he writes is a masterpiece. And soon he's going to be famous. We see that he's a cab driver. And with that, would you like to share the De Niro face reveal, Mike?
Yeah, this is a classic film watching experience where this is the only note I took during the entire runtime. He is he's here bright and early at 37 seconds into the film, which is wonderful.
Yeah, we see him a lot in this movie. This is a Robert De Niro film. They're often not, especially the later ones. So,
I mean, I did take extensive notes for my final rating, so I do have some real thoughts about this film.
I didn't write anything down about my final rating. It's going to be all jazz, but I did write a detailed recap of the plot. We shift to Paul Dano narration. And so this is the kind of general storytelling structure of the film, is it's kind of alternating between narration by these two characters. And so Paul Dano plays Nick Flynn. So he's Jonathan's son, who's also sort of trying to be a writer. And so it's just going to kind of shift between the two of these characters. We see a flashback of Nick as a child with his mom. His parents were separated and they're waiting for Jonathan, the dad, to show up, but he doesn't. And Paul Dano narrates that he stayed put in his life because he thought eventually his dad would come to find him, but he never did. We see that his partner with whom he's living is a flight attendant, and she comes home from a flight that she was doing her job on and sees, I didn't know what this was, but sees that he was doing some kind of drugs. Like there's like something in an ashtray. Was he just smoking pot? Like I didn't understand what it was, but like this is the incitement for their argument and breakup, is that she caught him doing some kind of drugs.
Well, the inciting thing was that she found something that indicated that he had cheated on her while she was away.
Oh, was that what it was? I thought she saw something in the ashtray. Like she saw that he had been doing some kind of drug that he was supposed to be clean from or something.
No, he's not on drugs yet. She found something that indicated that another woman had been in her bed.
Okay. No, I didn't catch that, so I'm sure you're correct.
And this flight attendant, played by Catherine Watterson, who she played the protagonist in Alien Covenant, which is a film that I didn't think was very good, but maybe you'll get around to watching someday.
I've never seen it. You should recommend Alien Covenant today.
Just here's one of the later Alien films that I didn't really care for.
Today is another one of those days, just so you know, that I wonder, although you would not allow this to happen, so whenever I say it, it ends up never being true. But I wonder today if we might have the same recommendation.
I think citizens of De Niro Nation will just have to wait and listen.
Yep, they will. Stick around for the rest of this wonderful discussion. So anyway, whatever the incitement is, he and his partner, who is the flight attendant, played by Alien Covenant lady, they get into a huge argument. He smashes his head into a mirror, breaking it, and she leaves him, and he moves out of their shared apartment.
It's a real mic drop moment, smashing your forehead into your girlfriend's mirror.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it looked like a really cheap mirror. Like it looked like one of those mirrors at Target that would cost like $7 back in 2012. And I have one of those mirrors in my bedroom, by the way. Do you have any stuff like that around your house? It's kind of a funny thing to reflect on, that are just like things that you bought in early adulthood when your general sort of economic positioning in the world was much more precarious, that you bought very inexpensively, that just like are totally fine, so you haven't had a reason to replace them yet, but are of a much lower caliber than you would buy today if you were rebuying that item?
Yeah, man, my fucking couch.
Oh, your couch. That's so true. Yeah. Mike has like, it's not a bad couch. I mean, for a cheap, like, kind of young adult couch, it's nice. But yeah, it's like a $400 IKEA couch, right?
Yeah, it's just the sort of thing that is fine for my needs, and I'm still renting, so I just haven't felt compelled to spend a lot of money on a really nice mid-century modern couch, although I do feel that desire every now and then. I don't know. The couch still works. I'm that kind of person. If it still works, I do not feel like replacing it.
Yeah, the mirror that we have in our bedroom that I paid $7 for in Target in 2013 still works as well. But if I were to replace it, I would probably spend, I guess I don't really know how much mirrors cost, but I assume a nice one must cost at least a couple $100. I think I would probably spend $200 buying like a nice tall mirror for my bedroom.
Well, maybe that factored into Paul Dano's thinking when he was like, oh, I really want to like make a statement here. And I know that this is a pretty cheap mirror that I can replace for like $25. So I'm going to smash my head into it. Maybe if it was more of a an expensive piece from like, Crate and Barrel or whatever, Raymore and Flanagan, then you'd hesitate before smashing his forehead.
Well, no, the reason why I'm saying it is because he apologizes to her for the mirror as they break up and says he'll replace it once he has money. And I was just thinking this really speaks to his circumstances that he can't cobble together, the price of a handful of items and a soda off the McDonald's dollar menu to replace this mirror that he's broken.
That's a sort of economical storytelling you get when Paul Weitz writes the script based on a memoir by Nick Flynn. I can't believe I had to look the guy's name up. It's the main character's name, Paul Dano.
This is Paul Dano's seminal memoir, Another Bullshit Night in Suck City or whatever it's called. I don't have it up in front of me right now. Okay, so we switch back to Jonathan, Robert De Niro, and we get a bunch of narration from him about all the bigotries that he holds. So he's really racist, he's really sexist, he's really homophobic. But in spite of these things, he's always been an artist. And we see him writing in his apartment, and down below him, there are people playing very, very loud music in the apartment, the ceiling of which is his floor. And he gets really angry and smashes on the floor and tells them to shut the fuck up. We cut back to Nick. Nick is moving, and he wants to be roommates with Thomas Middleditch of Silicon Valley fame. But Thomas Middleditch wonders how he's going to make money to pay the rent. Thomas Middleditch has a friend of his there with them. Her name is Denise. She's a relatively major character. Who's she played by, Mike? Since you usually know who the actors and actresses are.
She's played by Olivia Thirlby, who she's notable, at least to me, for playing the rookie in Dredd, the 2012 action film.
Have you recommended Dredd on the podcast yet? I don't think so, right?
I don't think I've recommended Dredd. I watched that a while. I rewatched it, but I watched it with friend of the pod, former guest of the pod, Philip, aka Lips. It was his first time watching it, and he didn't get it because he's simply too sophisticated for action films. But I had a big old crush on her in that movie. You kidding me? She's a telepath in that film. She could read my mind any day. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. See what's going on.
You're such a secretive person. You would hate having a telepath in your life.
Yeah, but like she'd read my mind and she'd be like, oh, wow, this guy wants to do some really wet and wild stuff. And I'm on board because it seems really dynamic and exciting,
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, I hope that's the case. I think that would be incredible for you if that happened. I hope it does. So anyway, Denise, she's there with old Middleditch, and she works at something she describes as an inn because it's the Harbor Street Inn. And so I'm just going to say it now, although this was a twist to me when it was revealed. It's not an inn. It's a homeless shelter that she works at. And so she tells him she works at this homeless shelter, the Harbor Street Inn, and says that she can get Nick a job there if he wants one. We cut back to Jonathan, and he remarks via narration that sometimes he picks up female fares who he has coitus with. And so we see that happen. And after he finishes sleeping with this lady who is the female fare, they look at pictures hung on his wall. And one of the pictures he describes as being of his wife and son. But when challenged by her, he acknowledges that she's actually his ex-wife from whom he is divorced. The loud music playing downstairs starts up again, and we see him go downstairs, break into the apartment, and brutally assault the men who are playing the loud music.
Let's take a moment and talk about the tone of the film so far, because we had a little debate before the recording of this episode about whether or not this is a drama or a dramedy. But I think tonally, this is honestly not dissimilar from Silver Linings Playbook, the film that we covered last week on the podcast. I think it is trying to do a similar sort of early 2010s, like indie prestige dramedy kind of thing. And the reason I mention that is we've already had a couple of moments with Robert De Niro's character, Jonathan Flynn, and the things that we learn about him, like you just described, like he's like a racist bigot. and he violently assaults the people who live underneath him or above him or whatever for playing music loudly. But it's presented in like a funny way, you know, like we are as audience members, we're kind of we're being guided to not hate this guy, despite the fact that he is quite contemptible in almost every way. Like it's kind of cutesy the way that they play his character, that he plays his character. And one moment that really stood out to me was when he describes his bigotry. He says, like at one point in the movie, I think he tells his son, I don't like blacks and I don't like homosexuals. And I thought to myself, if this is like a real, like raw indie drama, like really investigating the sorts of issues that this film wants to comment on, I don't think he would say those words to describe those groups of people.
Maybe. I don't know. It's tough. I think that, so I see the point that you're making, and I'm not even making this observation to disagree with the point that you're making, that this is meant to have sort of a slightly twisted comedic tone. But I think that there are a lot of people who hide their more sordid tendencies, I guess, beneath a veneer of sophistication and like being a kind of socialite, as I think this character Jonathan does, who would use, I think, the technical terms to almost sanitize their bigotry. I think that's actually quite common among this type of person.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. Yeah. Hey, listen, if you're one of those people, citizens of the Nero Nation,
you a racist who considers yourself smart. Yeah.
Yeah, write into Mike@deniro.com. Let us know what words you use.
But I don't think that means, like, I think maybe still that is supposed to be comedic. You may be correct, but like, I think this is definitely a type of person who like, they want to be like the smart bigot, you know, so they don't say the F slur, they say homosexual.
Yeah, well, you know, you could do that back in 2012. Nowadays, everyone on X just posts the slurs and they don't get censored.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah. It's so hard to keep up with linguistics in the modern era. You know, it's like, am I supposed to say the slur or am I supposed to say the
what do you want me to say?
Okay, so Nick goes to a party and he sees Denise of Dread fame, and they have sexual intercourse. And then Thomas Middleditch comes upstairs to Nick's room to wake him up and tell him that Jonathan, his father, is on the phone. His dad's on the phone and says that he's been evicted from his apartment, we understand as viewers, due to his violent assault of the loud music players, and that he needs to use Nick's pickup truck. He tells Nick that he's going to make him his sole heir and give him all of his shit. And so Nick agrees. And when he arrives, he walks into the apartment and Jonathan, Robert De Niro, is sitting completely ass naked in like a giant metal tub in like the middle of the entryway to the apartment, I guess, like kind of between the entrance and the kitchen. And he gets up and Nick excuses himself while his dad gets dressed. And we see Nick flash back in this moment to being a child reading a letter from his dad, who in the letter is bloviating in much the same way that he does in all the narration of the film about what a great writer he is and how soon he will be discovered. And his mom comes over to him and they have a discussion that reveals to us as viewers that his dad is writing all these letters to him because he's in prison for interstate wire fraud.
That's how they get you. You don't want to commit those crimes over state lines.
No, it becomes federal, you know? It's not good. Keep it in the state.
Get a machete on you.
I think it's probably virtually impossible to commit wire or check fraud now in a way that doesn't have an interstate dimension, right? Just because everything is so kind of globalized, certainly across the states in the United States. I expect it's kind of all interstate at this point.
Yeah, I suppose so.
All right. Anyway, back from the flashback in the present, Jonathan is dressed now and he invites Nick into his apartment and just starts saying all kinds of deranged things about his social beliefs and his artistic vision and all this kind of stuff. We see them move Jonathan's shit downstairs and Jonathan gives Nick a painting, which he describes as an authentic Jackson Pollock, which we as viewers know it obviously isn't, but which Nick initially believes is actually true. We see Jonathan show Nick a letter from his publisher by way of justification for him thinking he's like a generational writing talent. And the letter is a rejection letter, but it has one little throwaway line in it that's a compliment. And so Jonathan has chosen to fully seize on that rather than the fact that they did not want to publish his novel.
Yeah, it's like the classic like compliment sandwich. It's like, hey, Like if I'm rating you as a podcaster, it's like great enthusiasm, horrible, and then infectious energy. It's like you got to do that. Or is the compliment sandwich where you put the compliment in the middle?
In the middle, yeah.
Oh, damn it! Okay, I did a reverse compliment
It's
sandwich.
meant to dampen. I think it's meant to dampen the. Well, I think it can be either way. I think it could also be the bad thing in the middle of two compliments. It's just about creating that contrast to kind of dampen the impact of the negative feedback.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like Mike. I think your hair looks really, really good today. But God, you really need to start showering. But you're doing a great job on the podcast.
That's crazy, man. You're really put me on blast.
So it's like you can walk away from that conversation. You can walk away from that conversation and be like, well, gosh, at least I'm really good on the podcast. Maybe I will take a shower, Yeah,
you have a body odor for radio.
Yeah. Mike smells great, just so you guys know. Almost nobody listening to this has ever smelled or will ever smell him. But in general, he seems like he showers perfectly enough.
We need to get more fans. We need to do the world tour, and we need to just have like a VIP like meet and smell event. Just like fans can just come up to us and just kind of nuzzle themselves into our chests and take a whiff.
If you contribute at the highest tier of our Patreon, Mike will actually let you press your nostrils so that your little nose hair touch him to his armpit, so you can know exactly what it's like. Yeah, that's a reward at our highest tier.
For the record, that's one of the things that Olivia Thirlby will see in my mind when she reads it.
Just her nostrils pressed up against your armpit,
or vice versa,
or vice versa.
Egalitarian that way.
Yep. Yeah, that's powerful. That's feminist of you, honestly. So we see Nick talking to Denise and Thomas Middleditch, and we see him kind of process in real time that the Jackson Pollock's not actually real, that it's just some painting, essentially. Denise convinces Nick to interview for a job at the homeless shelter, and we see kind of Nick have this exchange with the director of the homeless shelter where they talk about self-loathing and the kinds of ways that motivates people. And Nick reveals that he is very self-loathing. And the director of the homeless shelter, whom they call Captain, because he's the captain of the ship, I guess, in this metaphor, says that he doesn't have space in his life to be self-loathing, and explains kind of how he escaped from poverty and kind of found some stability in his life and how instrumental the Harbor Street Inn was in that process.
It's interesting, reflecting on my experiences, especially my first year practicum in the MSW program. I didn't work at a homeless shelter per se, but I worked at a local mission that worked with a lot of people dealing with homelessness. So I was really kind of immersed in that world for the first academic year of my program. And I honestly feel like that little speech, I think it was from the character played by Wes Studi, who you may recall played Detective Sammy Casals in Heat. I thought that was a really economical way to kind of highlight the difficult journey faced by so many people who kind of face homelessness. And it almost felt at odds to me with the circumstances of Robert De Niro's character becoming homeless. Because homelessness it's a problem where people don't think about this, but the average American is much closer to becoming homeless than they would think, right? Like the average person is only a few bad decisions away from being homeless at any given
paychecks, point.
Right. Yep. Like the average person only has $10,000 in savings or something like that. It's not a great situation.
It's much less than that, but yes, very tenuous. Yep.
And I thought this is another thing that I thought was kind of like played for comedy, but I thought kind of undercut the drama where the circumstances of Jonathan's being evicted and ending up on the street. Because they kind of, I don't know, like the moment where he gets fed up with the music and starts like hitting the downstairs tenants with his bat or whatever, it's kind of like played for laughs. It's kind of like a yuck moment that he's like kicked out of his apartment. And I don't know, like this movie spends a lot of time in this homeless shelter and like dealing with this issue. But I don't know, like it kind of like it didn't gel for me tonally in the first act because of that. I don't know. How'd you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I think that like kind of what you're talking about, the the tension between these two tonal thrusts, I guess, and like a desire on my part to reconcile things and like make it gel is why I did not read this as a dramedy. Like, I guess I just read it as bad storytelling of a story that is just like really, really dark. Like, and I guess that if you want to justify the sort of comedic like way that it looks askance at what's happening in the film, I guess you could kind of read that as being an expression of the way the De Niro character sees himself, because he's like a huge fucking piece of shit, but he seems to think that he's like kind of cute. You know, like it's like he's being kind of silly, like, right. You know, like
it's kind of cute. The film is kind of quirky, right? It thinks it's being kind of, it has dueling narrators.
God,
I mean, come on.
It does. Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, really excited to get to our final thoughts. So the captain is not super impressed with Nick in the interview, probably because he seems like a total weirdo, and tells him that he's not going to hire him, but he'll let him be a fill-in. So if someone calls off their shift, he may get called in to sub for that person. And he gets home and someone called off their shift, so he goes in for fill-in on the first night that he was available as a fill-in. And as he goes to the homeless shelter to work for the first time, this was probably my least favorite part of the film. I think my single least favorite scene. We get some really awkward fourth wall breaking with like the characters in the homeless shelter, like the other people who work there, like a few of the folks who are staying there, just kind of like commenting to the viewer, essentially like what it's like working at the homeless shelter. It's the only time that this happens in the film. And it read, to our discussion that we just had, as like really twee and cute in a way that I don't think homelessness and like the thankless toil of like trying to fight it are funny. Like, I don't think that's like a particularly funny topic.
Yes, I completely agree. And I have to wonder what was the point of including that in the film? And I understand, you know, I've talked about my feelings on narration in films back during our Oscar special, because I did not like its usage in, the fuck was that movie called? Train Dreams.
Train Dreams.
Yes. Oh, how could I forget? I'm always dreaming about trains. And this is a similar case where this is a film based on a book that I think uses narration as a crutch. I will say I actually kind of like Robert De Niro's narration in the film because he's an unreliable narrator, because we know he's like full of shit con artist who has delusions of grandeur. So that makes it interesting when he's narrating, and we can tell like what we're actually seeing on screen does not match whatever bullshit he's telling us and himself essentially. But here in the sequence at the homeless shelter, we're learning things about the people, the residents of the shelter, and like why. I think all it does is distance us. Well, no, because I think that narration, when used poorly, which I think it usually is in films, I think has the adverse effect of distancing us from the events happening on screen. Yep. It doesn't immerse me in the film when I'm learning like weird kind of like voice of God stuff about these minor characters and like what will happen to them 3 or 5 years from now or whatever. I think that's a bizarre choice. And I think that it's lazy screenwriting if you're adapting a book to go like, oh, and now here's where I tell you like things A, B, C, and D just to kind of catch you up and keep the runtime within 105 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. We talked in last week's Silver Linings Playbook episode about how something that I hate so much about the film adaptation of the book is how it just chooses not to adapt Pat's role in the story as an unreliable narrator of his own life. And maybe this storytelling device would have actually worked better in Silver Linings Playbook. Maybe it would have made me like it more, because I think his narration would have been kind of like Jonathan's narration, where he would be talking about how he and Nikki are maybe going to get together, and we'd see like how incompatible they were, like in a flashback on the screen at the same time. And like, that is a way, I think, to your point, that's very, very insightful comment that you just made. Like, that narration, I think, can work very well in film, is when its contrast to what's happening visually enhances our understanding of a character.
I think it's fun that now that we've seen Silver Linings Playbook, we're just going to mention it every single week from here on out.
It's really, really good. Yeah. I'm going to try. I'm going to make a point. Okay. So we see Nick at his first shift. He intervenes in a scuffle, even though he's told not to, and gets decked in the face. So we're kind of seeing that he thinks that he's worldly and smart and judicious in his decision making, but he's actually like an ignorant little dipshit who is not ready for prime time in the homeless shelter yet.
He's a punk.
Yes, he's a punk. Exactly. We cut to Jonathan, and we see him show up to a pretty nice, expensive-looking brownstone that apparently somebody he knows lives in to try to get that person to let him stay overnight, but he's rebuffed. The person whose house it is tells some story about how his mother-in-law is staying there, and it kind of seems to us as viewers that that's probably not true, that this guy actually just doesn't like Jonathan and doesn't want him staying at his house. And Jonathan has remarked, I think, once or twice up until this point, right, that he is a, quote, much sought after house guest because he's like he uses some goofy old timey word. Does he describe himself as like a raconteur or something?
Yes. Yeah. A few times. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
That's twee, man.
I didn't write it down, but like, yeah, that is very twee. Yep. We see him sleep in the backseat of his cab, and we get a montage of what he's doing for the next few weeks. And finally, we see him. I haven't mentioned this yet, but another thing about him is we never talked about this, but we know that he is an alcoholic who often drinks while he's driving his cab. So like we see him at several points in little montages of his life, like pouring a little bottle of like what are those little bottles called? Are those fifths?
Nips.
Those tiny little bottles?
Nips.
No, well, nips are the really small one. He's using fifths, I think, which is a little more expensive than a nip.
I don't remember the size.
Whatever. Pouring like a little bit of vodka into a cup of orange juice to drink while he drives the cab. So he's doing that a lot, and we see him fall asleep at the wheel and crash, and he loses his license and gets his cab taken away. So now he doesn't even have the cab to sleep in, essentially. We cut back to Nick, and we see him kind of advancing in the shelter, working through progressively riskier and riskier roles. And we see that at the shelter, after every shift, the different folks who work there write up their experiences, and they have like kind of a group circle where they read them to each other. And Nick's narratives of his experience are very artful and writerly in a way that the captain and the other folks at the shelter appreciate. Denise invites herself over to his house again.
Do they appreciate it? I thought the impression I got was that they thought it was like kind of over the top.
No, I thought they liked it. Certainly the boss did. He compliments him on it.
Well, I thought it was like a side eye compliment. Like,
no, I didn't read it that way.
Oh, it's really
possible.
Interesting.
9:10. Isaac Clegg fell out of bed, and the bed fell on him. The skin of a drunk splits open easily. Their blood flows more freely, thinned out by the booze. The nurse is gone for the evening, and Isaac is loath to go to the hospital. I make an attempt to bandage him. 9:30. I was able to convince George D. to sit still for his monthly delousing. Lice thrive so well on George's body that they can be seen crawling over him at 20 paces. Nothing in the shelter makes me understand my purpose more than to kill bugs off a homeless man's flesh, to dress him well in donated, cast-off clothes, and to see him the next day laughing beside a burning barrel.
Okay, Nick. Very expressive. I like the stuff about Isaac being loath to go to the hospital.
Thank you.
How about we let the next person read their entry?
But that was you seeing the tone as more intentionally like askance or like looking down its nose at something, right? Which was not. I was trying to see it as not that way.
Yeah.
I was trying to see it as earnest.
Why didn't you give Silver Linings Playbook that much grace?
Yeah, God, that's a really good question. That's a great allusion to
5 stars.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite film of the podcast so far. Actually, I guess I just think something that I don't think that we reflect upon very much, right? And you kind of alluded to this. You alluded to this when you talked about how all of us as normal middle-class Americans are much closer to being homeless and indigent and on the street than we are to like being rich, right? Like you're much more likely to have the bad thing happen to you. And so I think a lot about how like, there are these qualities of the world that are the entropic state of the universe, right? And the entropic state of the universe is like chaos. And so the entropic state is like all these fucking people dying on the street, essentially. And if you work in a homeless shelter, you are never going to fix this problem. It's not possible. It is only, very broad structural and systemic reforms that would need a lot of like government and big business involvement, essentially, that could possibly close the gap, as it were, with the problem of growing homelessness and indigence. And so if you just work in a homeless shelter, you're going to go to work and do this shit 8 hours a day. And all you are achieving is essentially stopping the situation from getting worse. You're never actually going to be able to make it better. And like, that's like a fundamental tragic truth about the human experience, is that it's all just fighting against entropy. Like, and you'll be on the street if you stop fighting for even like a second, essentially. And I don't think that's very funny. And so, like, I guess I wanted to make it not funny because I think it's a topic that has a lot of weight. I think it's very profound as like a set of circumstances to lay out on the screen. Like, it's very noble to go to work every day and fight that, even though you just know you're never going to fix the problem.
Yeah, but I don't think the film interrogates the homelessness issue with any level of seriousness or depth that lends itself to the tonal interpretation that you wish it, that you're imbuing upon it.
Yep, you're right. So whatever, anyway, doesn't matter. Who fucking gives a shit? If you've ever seen this movie, write us at mike@ourherodinero.com and let us know, whose general interpretation of it emotionally you are more aligned with, mine or Mike's. So Denise goes over to his house and we see her read some writing by him, by Nick, out of a spiral notebook, which is about experiences he's had abusing drugs. So here, I did not remember this when you argued with me about what the reason was for their breakup at the beginning of the film. But here is, I think, what solidified for me more that the incitement of their breakup was him doing drugs, because when she reads this thing that he wrote in his spiral notebook, we haven't seen him start experimenting with drugs yet. So I think as viewers, we're supposed to understand that he has had past struggles with drug abuse, which are like a problem for him, which would explain why his girlfriend would see like, oh, it seems like maybe he's relapsing and leave him. Like, it wasn't like that was a first experience he had with drugs where she's like, oh, let me help you kick this. It's like, oh, you're fucked up former drug addict. Like, I'm not going to stay with you if you're using again, essentially.
But that disrupts the character arc in the movie.
What do you mean?
That disrupts the character arc in the movie because we will see him fall back into drugs and relapse. He doesn't relapse at the beginning of the film.
Listen, all right, you're going to have to go back, or you're going to have to go back and rewatch the first 15 minutes of 2012's Being Flynn, okay? Why don't you guys write us at mike@ourherodinero.com and let us know if it was infidelity or drug abuse that was the inciting event for, the beautiful narrative thrust of this fantastic story that we're all experiencing right now.
I have the movie locked and loaded right now, and I'm just going to play a few seconds, and we'll find out live on air right now.
Yep, let's do it. I love that.
Nick, what's the ashtray doing by the bed?
Sorry.
Lipstick? You're a fucking asshole.
Oh, look, you're the one who said you didn't see a future for us.
I wonder why.
What was it?
She said lipstick.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, so I guess you're right.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangsta.
Yeah, I suppose so. That's my favorite song. So anyway, and Denise is very alienated, seemingly in the moment when she reads this stuff that he's written, where now she thinks that he's like got a more tenuous grip on his life, I guess, than she thought he did before, essentially. We get more of Jonathan's bloviating narration about his generational talent as a writer, and he is working on his novel in a library, which is going to be closing soon. And here we see him call a black lady an ape, which is, I think, one of the only times that we actually see him being racist on screen. He just talks about how racist he is usually in the narration.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't call people that, in my opinion.
Definitely not. Yeah. I would like to hope, actually, in most people's opinions.
Yeah.
Like, I think even though I think as a society we have degraded a little bit over the past 5 or 10 years as it relates to racial sensitivity, I would like to think that the vast majority of Americans would still draw the line somewhere before that, before calling someone a slur.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Go on X, the everything app, and just read some replies.
Well, social media is not reality. At least a third of those posts are from bots, and there's a selection factor at play. I mean, only the most insane people are posting on X, the everything app.
Listen, man, it's real to me. I put my my Oculus Rift headset on, and I fucking hack in there, and that's my entire everything I see in my field of view are just tweets.
Slur,
Yeah.
snuff video, snuff video. You're in the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. Of like Joe Pantoliano just going, all I see is slur, just F slur, C slur.
Oh, God, that's brutal. That's so funny. And so now Jonathan he's hit rock bottom and he moves into the shelter. Nick is the one who checks him in, and he's understandably flummoxed by this. He and Denise have a conversation, and she asks him what's wrong, and he tells her it's about how his dad is living in the shelter now. His boss, the captain, asks him about it and offers for him to leave early, but Nick refuses, says that he can stay, even though his dad's there. And he goes to visit his dad, who's sleeping in the communal bedroom, who's staying in the communal bedroom. He's looking out the window, and we get more Jonathan bloviation about his writing. We see Nick back at home with his friends, and he flashes back to a boyfriend of his mother's who showed him a bunch of violent pictures for some reason. Didn't really understand why he would be showing this to him. And we see that then he kind of started to get in trouble after he saw that. So I think we're supposed to see that as having been some kind of incitement for issues that he's had in his life. And we see this is one of the more artful shots, I think, directorially in the film. We see a series of boyfriends that his mom had, and the way that we see this is he's playing catch with somebody in his front yard as a kid, and the camera continues to move between the two throwers and catchers in the catching game that he's playing, and every time it cuts back to the person he's playing catch with is a different man who his mom had around, essentially, to be a father figure to him. I enjoyed that. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, sure. That was a nice bit of visual storytelling to convey the lack of a stable father figure in his life, because Robert De Niro is a fucking deadbeat in this film. But I didn't care for the flashbacks in general, and I don't think they revealed anything particularly interesting about the character, and I don't think it was necessary for them to be interspersed throughout the film's narrative. I don't know. Maybe it's just because those beats didn't affect me as much as I think they were supposed to. I don't know. How'd you feel about them? The Julianne Moore bits.
Nothing in this film affected me emotionally at all. So I don't think really any of it is going to be. And remember, if you're coming for the first time, or if maybe you've only listened to a few episodes, 1/3 of the movies I watch make me cry. And this, that's obviously a high estimate, but it's at least 10 or 15%. It's a really high number. It's substantial. And for this film to have the subject matter it has, to be about regrets of bad parents who know they could have done better, the trauma of isolation and suicide and drug abuse and homelessness, and to not really emotionally affect me at all is an indictment of I think the film as a story. This should have made me cry, but it didn't make me feel anything, really.
Yeah, I love a good father-son story, and
me too. Yep.
Yeah, it did not deeply affect me.
It wasn't doing it for me at all. That's one of my favorite types of story. It's a real shame. So we see a montage of Jonathan in the homeless shelter, and he's being really bigoted in a bunch of conversations that we see him having with other folks in the shelter. And outside, he gets mugged by 3 guys. And so we just see his material circumstances worsening and worsening, and he's still an incorrigible douchebag who's worsening his situation by having the problems he has relating to other people and being respectful in the world. We see Nick start to regress into drug abuse. He's doing coke with one of his 2 roommates. I haven't even talked about this other guy. So he's got Thomas Middleditch as his roommate, and then he's got, I guess, Black roommate, right? If you wanted to say something about him that would be, what's the word for that would reduce him, I guess, in a way to talk about how insignificant this character is in the story. And so he's like a drug dealer who's telling Thomas Middleditch for the whole story that he's only dealing pot. But we can all tell as viewers that he's obviously dealing harder drugs and lying to his roommate about it. And so Nick goes and sees him and says, hey, you are selling stuff other than pot, right? And he tells him he's also selling coke. And so he does coke with him. And we see him and Denise seeming like maybe they're getting a little bit more serious with each other, a little bit more meaningful emotional entanglement between them. But he proposes to her that they do coke together, and she declines. And we can tell that that's kind of like a moment for them in their relationship. Like she was not into that proposal by him. And we see another montage of Jonathan at the shelter. We can just see the degradation of his mental and emotional state. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And interspersed with clips of Nick in the sharing sessions with his fellow shelter workers, getting grouchier and grouchier. And I think as viewers, we're meant to understand that this is a kind of an effect of the kind of dual inputs of the emotional issues of his dad being in the shelter and the, they're probably also emotional, but they probably have a slightly broader valence than that. But other issues caused by his increasing drug use. So Nick is not doing well right now. He's really struggling.
Yeah, it's kind of hat in hand. You think maybe they could have, transferred Jonathan to a different shelter or something. I understand that it's winter time in New York, and so capacity is going to be limited. But it seems like it's really having a degrading effect on Paul Dano's mental health in this film.
It's Paul Dano.
Oh, I've heard it both ways.
So this all comes to a head, and we see Nick confront Jonathan, and they have a very emotional conversation and do not agree, essentially.
It's like emotional. Yeah, it's like emotional and arguing at each other kind of way, not in a
yes. Yeah,
we're breaking down and finally finding common ground kind of way.
Yeah. Bad emotion, not good emotion. It's not the emotion they need to feel with each other.
Here's a question for you. During one of their conversations at the shelter, I don't think it was this one, it might have been a little earlier in the film, Robert De Niro's telling Paul Dano, he's like, oh yeah, this is great. Like I'm just collecting so much material for my writing, being here, just seeing all of these people and this slice of life. And that must be great for you too, Paul Dano, because you as a writer must also be here to collect material. And Paul Dano's character he's really staunchly like, no, like that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to collect material. I'm not here to write about these people. I'm here to help them. And I just, maybe this is me overthinking it. Maybe it's because, again, the emotional beats weren't hitting for me the way that I think they were intended to. But I couldn't help but feel like this was a bit of an awkward contradiction because we are literally watching a movie based on a memoir written by this guy.
Oh, that's good.
So this guy's really adamant. Like I'm not exploiting these people and their rough lives for the purposes of my bullshit writing. But you did turn it into a fucking memoir, dude. Another bullshit night in
with
Suck
a movie
City.
made based on it. And he cashed in on these experiences that he had. He didn't stop at book.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. I didn't think of that. So they do, to your earlier comment, devolve into a screaming match, the subject of which is essentially Jonathan's insistence that Nick is just like him because he's his son, and Nick's argument that that is not the case. Nick asks to be transferred to working in the outreach van. This was introduced earlier, but we didn't talk about it. So they have this van that folks who work at the shelter essentially go out into at night, especially on particularly cold nights, to give food to homeless people whom they find out on the streets and let them come into the van for a little while to warm up since it's so dangerously cold outside at night. So Nick goes and does that, and we see Jonathan get evicted from the shelter due to his violent, angry tendencies. The eviction happens via vote amongst the staff, and Nick does not vote for his father to be allowed to stay. Only 3 people vote for him to be allowed to stay, and Nick is not one of those people. And we see him essentially very regretful and tortured over the fact that he made this decision. He spirals into a drunken, drug-induced depression from this, and we see that he is starting to smoke crack. So the drug abuse is getting worse.
Yeah, the escalation is intense. I understand wanting to party a little hard. Okay, you got the powder. Okay, sure. Tonight we're gonna have a good night, like the Black Eyed Peas sang. But you start smoking that crack rock. That's a whole different ballgame.
And crack is like, so here's the thing. I really don't know very much about smoking crack. I've never done it. You ever smoke crack?
No, I have not.
No, I don't think I ever will either. But I think of like smoking crack as being a pretty low quality experience. Like, I think that in society, I think that we think about doing cocaine, smoking pot, taking pills, like clubbing on like ecstasy and stuff like that as being activities that maybe are a little dangerous and among a certain sub portion of society seen as somewhat scandalous, but generally like a fun, good time associated with partying and having a nice time and connecting with people. We don't think about smoking crack in that way. Is that because of something about smoking crack, or is that because of the war on drugs and the way that the government and social mores in general kind of castigated narratively smoking crack versus snorting cocaine? Do you know anything about what the truth is to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's war on drugs related, but I think I think it really has to do with the fact that crack is incredibly cheap relative to those other drugs. You think about like I used to work for a guy who was like a former Wall Street guy in the 80s. And like, I'm sure that guy was just rocking coke, 5 days a week. Yeah, yep. Exactly. Yep. Every working hour. It's like an association that we have because it's like more expensive, but crack is like the cheapest. That's why you go for it. Cause it's like more potent than cocaine and like a tenth the price or whatever. Okay. I don't actually know how much it is relative. I don't know the actual prices here. Yeah. I needed to rewatch Miami Vice, the Michael Mann 2006 film. I'll get back to
recommend that today. Yep.
Oh my God.
I was just thinking while I was watching this, like, I've never smoked crack and I probably never will. And, it's just sad to know that an experience is totally closed off to you. It's like, I'm just never going to do it. I'll never know what it's like.
Well, we could make bucket lists. I think at a certain point, like, if you're like 75, how many good years do you have left? Why not just try a little crack? I haven't seen the movie The Bucket List, but I have to assume at some point Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman smoke crack.
You would think, right? Yeah.
I would hope so. It's in the unrated extended edition where it's like in red text on the DVD cover.
The act of smoking crack like this is actually much more evocative of the norms and social mores of 1990. So we can't show this in R-rated films that are released today.
Yeah,
it's a deep cut callback to our Goodfellas episode. Right.
Well, it's like how Steven Spielberg edited out the guns in the special edition of E.T. when the cops are chasing the kids. It's like they'd have to edit the crack pipe out of Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson's hands in the bucket list nowadays.
We get another flashback in this moment of Nick's mom. So I don't really understand where this flashback comes from. I didn't think of this while I was writing it down, but now that I'm thinking about it, all of the other flashbacks are constrained to the lived experience of one of our two main characters. But then this one's just about Julianne Moore. And like, there's no way that Paul Dano could possibly know that this happened. So it's kind of strange narrative choice to include this flashback. We get a flashback to just Nick's mom, and she reads a story of his in a spiral notebook. We don't see exactly what it was, but whatever it is really upsets her, and she kills herself. Nick is the one who finds her body. She shot herself in the head. And we cut back to the present day. Jonathan tries to come back to Harbor Street after having gotten evicted, and is rebuffed, told he's banned, and gets really ornery and argumentative. And as he's escorted out of the facility, screams at an imagined Nick, calling him "quote unquote" father murderer over and over again.
Would you have voted Robert De Niro out of the shelter if you were in that share circle of employees?
If I was his son or not?
I guess not. If you were just like one of the employees.
Without hesitation.
Yeah, same.
I'm not an insensitive person. I think I actually am a pretty sensitive person. But like, you just have to recognize that like some people are beyond help. And, it's just him and like 49 other homeless people who are staying at this shelter. And you need to do what you need to do to keep the place running and keep the other folks who are there who aren't causing problems safe. I mean, it's really sad, obviously, but what are you going to do? That's just how you run something like that.
It's a really dangerous environment, and you need to do everything you can to keep the peace. As Spock would say, right. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
It seems incredibly obvious to me. I was really, I found it kind of like sad and silly that so few people, like I think everyone should have voted for him to be banned. It's like he's being violent and scaring people. Yeah. Like, these people like need a place to live that's like safe and quiet to like get them in the best possible space to be in to go back out on the streets the next day. Like, we really need this to be a good environment for these folks. It's all they have.
Yeah.
But if I was his son, I don't know. That's kind of fucked up. I think it would be hard to do to your dad,
Right. Because then your options, it's like, do I kick my dad out on the street in the middle of winter, or do I let him stay and continue to like degrade my mental health? Or option C, do I hit that crack rock?
Oh, I think we all know what Nick chose.
Oh yeah,
it's another bullshit day in Suck City for him. After Jonathan leaves, Denise talks to Nick and tells him that she doesn't want to see him anymore because of how fucked up he is. And she explains to him that her brother was an addict. And he very stupidly asks her if her brother is okay now, even though it's really obvious to us as viewers based on the way she's telling the story that he died from his drug addiction.
Yeah, kind of like a past tense.
Yeah. It's more of a past tense story about her brother, not a present tense story. We see Nick starting to go to, I think probably NA meetings, right? Narcotics Anonymous. They don't say explicitly what the group is, but going to meetings. And the people who are there with him tell some really fucked up stories about what being addicted to drugs has meant to them. And Nick finds that very upsetting. I thought this was pretty funny. Like, we get like a little bit of Nick surprise Pikachu face storytelling here, because like these people tell these stories and he like, I guess he didn't realize that drug addiction was bad. Like, it's like the guy tells the story about how he's like a drunk and he woke up from being blacked out in Paris and realized that he'd flown an overseas flight on like a 737 the night before or whatever and doesn't remember any of it. And like, I don't know, are you a fucking moron? You don't realize that shit like that happens? Like, you need to be told that story to not just understand abstractly how damaging and dangerous drug addiction can be. Like, right. Nick seems pretty dumb in this moment.
Yeah. It's like, buddy, don't act like you're better than anyone else there. You literally smoke crack.
Right. Like, we're all suffering together. Like, yep. We see him at a diner, and a lady comes up to him and tells him that she saw Jonathan and that he was seriously threatened by some guys who consider a parking garage that he's been sleeping in their territory alone. Nick is trying to find him, but he can't. And we see him kind of interspersed in this montage, continuing to go to meetings. And eventually he does find Jonathan and invites him to come stay at his house. Back at his apartment, his and Thomas Middleditch's apartment, Jonathan asks him about his mom, and Nick tells Jonathan about how his mom read the unfinished story, which was about her and how sad her life was, and then she killed herself. But Nick says that what makes him really sad about it is that he was gonna write more. It wasn't finished. He was gonna write about how even though her life is really sad and everything about it sucks, it's still like empowering that she's working so hard to be a good mother. And so he really regrets leaving this unfinished story laying around to incite her suicide. And Jonathan tells him that nobody kills themselves because they read a story. They do it because they hate themselves, which I think is a fucking crazy thing to tell someone about their mom's suicide.
Yeah, it's not the most delicate way he could have worded it, but I think it's true that I don't think someone's going to kill themselves over a short story, no matter how bad the prose is.
Yep.
There's so many fucking typos in this story.
Yep. So Nick wakes up the next morning to hearing the door close of his apartment. Jonathan is left. He follows him out and catches him, and we get more Jonathan ranting, and then he leaves forever. Nick decides to quit working at the shelter. He finishes up his writing degree and becomes a teacher. We see that his father has an apartment, and he goes to visit him there. And Nick is a published poet now, whose first book of poems is going to receive an award from Penn. And we see him do a reading of his poems at some bookstore or something. And he's got a black wife and a half black child. And Jonathan is there, and he meets his black wife and half black child and doesn't say anything racist. And that's our happy ending. The end.
I think that's great. At the end, he gets to hold his granddaughter, and the granddaughter, little toddler, cute kid, starts crying. And it's like, she could tell, she could sense the racism.
Right. This guy's super racist. Like, yeah.
That's dramatic irony when you're a racist against the black community, and then you have a black granddaughter. Before we get into our final thoughts on this film, can I just say, like, narratively, plot wise, I thought they kind of glossed over the reconciliation portion, just because it felt like we moved so quickly from Jonathan, Robert De Niro's character. Clearly, he exhibits a lot of behaviors that suggest like serious untreated mental illness, and he's in the shelter and he hasn't received a formal diagnosis. I think he mentions manic depressive disorder earlier in the film. And, he clearly like demonstrates grandiosity, erratic decision making, difficulty maintaining relationships. But the film never diagnoses him, which is probably for the best, because, people are not just their diagnoses. But I feel like we never got from him at that low point to all of a sudden, like, he's got the apartment, now he's all good, now he's stable, now he's supportive of his son, and he's starting to form a relationship with his son's family. It was like, I don't know, it kind of felt like it went in that other direction so quickly. And I thought maybe this would have been like an opportunity for the film to maybe get into the idea of the housing first approach to fighting homelessness, but we didn't really touch on that either at all. So, because I thought like maybe him getting the Section 8 housing was what kind of stabilized his life and allowed him to work on getting clean or something, but we don't really get anything about that.
Yeah,
It
I don't
just
know.
kind of wrapped up so neatly.
I mean, you might have heard, listeners, how much breezier my kind of telling of the end of the film was, but I think the pace of my recap was actually pretty consistent with the runtime. So, like, to Mike's point, like, we're 95% of the way through the film and it just shifts to redemption in a way that like is totally unjustified by what happens in the story. And it's like, oh, everything's good now. It's unexplained. My read of it is that Flynn's thesis, in writing this was that the way you get to have a relationship with this kind of like really difficult person is just by accepting all of their flaws and just trying to look past them and focus on the things that you do have in common with one another. But even with that justification, it does really paper over like, but how does Robert De Niro have a house now? Like, what changed in his life? I really don't know. Maybe we're supposed to think that like the earnest conversation that he had with Nick in his apartment about his mother's suicide was like some sort of turning point for him in his mental health journey or something like that. I guess maybe like that's one read of the narrative, but I don't know that feels believable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What did you think of this film, Mike?
Well, I didn't like it, but I didn't strongly dislike it. It's really in the middle for me. I didn't have particularly strong feelings about it, and I couldn't help. Honestly, I couldn't help but compare it to Silver Linings Playbook because they're both early 2010s indie dramas or dramedies dealing with themes of mental illness and erratic protagonists and familial relationships and inherited mental illness, like all these things. I liked Silver Linings Playbook way more than I liked this movie, though, like substantially more. I thought Silver Linings Playbook, I felt much more emotionally connected to the characters in that film, and I thought it more deftly balanced drama and comedy. Like I laughed a few times during Silver Linings Playbook. I did not laugh during Being Flynn. I just recognized that there were moments that were played for comedy during the film. I think the real strong point here are the performances by Paul Dano and Robert De Niro. Dano is one of those actors who can hold his own against a titan like De Niro. And De Niro, because this is like produced by his production company, he's not, sleepwalking through it. He's giving a committed performance. He's really good in the role with
He's great.
Whatever the script gives him. But I thought the film tonally was inconsistent. I felt like it wanted to be funny, insightful, and moving all at once, but none of that really landed for me, as we discussed over the course of this recap. And like with Silver Linings Playbook, I think my biggest problem narratively with that film was its very Hollywood style safe ending. But Being Flynn just felt more self-conscious and less emotionally engaging to me. Tonally, it felt overly like indie in terms of its sensibility in ways that I thought really worked against it. Like, we didn't talk about the music at all, but the soundtrack in this film is filled with early 2010s, like mellow indie folk and indie rock music.
God, you're
very
right.
somber, very like, oh my God. Like, listen, it really brought me back to that time and place in a way that I didn't love, but it really felt like a product of its time in all the worst ways. And I think for a story that's about homelessness, addiction, and mental illness, I wanted something a little rougher and more grounded instead of this like, that early 2010s, like Arcade Fire kind of vibe, indie drama. We already talked about the narration, didn't work for me. The ending did not feel fully earned, talked about that already. And the handling of homelessness, which was such a major component of the film, just felt kind of sanitized. Like, I don't know. And honestly, at the end of the day, we both talked about how we like a good father-son movie. We don't get a lot of father-son interaction in this movie.
No.
There's not a lot of deep stuff happening between them. It's more like they happen to end up in the same place for a while, and Robert De Niro's mere presence just really sets Paul Dano off. I don't know. It never really satisfied me, but I didn't hate it. It's just one of those films. It's like, it's totally competently made. It's just not a great script. And if you're not like a big Paul Dano or Robert De Niro fan, or a fan of like indie dramas from this era, then I don't think there's much here for you. So I think I'm going to land on a soft 2.5 out of 5.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I really don't know that I have very much to add. I think that I was a little bit more put off by the tonal tension than you were, as reflected by the fact that in my viewing, I tried to reconcile it and was ultimately unsuccessful. But I think that I probably would have been better off. I mean, it's not, I can't do this. It's just something about me. But like, I would be better off watching a film like this if I were more able to just recognize that it's a failed dramedy and just engage with it on its own merits. But no, I think this movie is pretty bad. I don't think that it's one of the worst films that we've watched for the podcast. We've seen some real stinkers. Even lately, we've seen some real stinkers. But I really don't think that it's very good. I think that it is elevated by a little bit of directorial flourish and the excellence of De Niro and Dano's performances. Although I think part of the issue with the father-son dimension of the characterization is that I don't know that these actors have great chemistry together, in spite of the fact that they're both really good on their own.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I think I struggled to connect with the characters' relationship even when they are on screen together in those limited moments, just because I didn't feel anything there really about the two of them together. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend this one. I don't think it's very good, but I'm going to give it 2 stars, the same score I gave Silver Linings Playbook last week.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, I was kind of like using that as an anchor point. I thought this is like this is a full point worse than Silver Linings Playbook. Honestly, this film really reminds me of Ezra from way back in our podcast history.
Yeah, you're right.
Second episode ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
it
that
is
sort
very
of
similar
like
to Ezra.
twee bullshit that doesn't have anything particularly insightful to say.
But I think that Ezra's better than this, honestly. I think. What did we give Ezra? I gave it 2 and you gave it 2.5. Yep.
There we go.
But
You
yeah,
gave it
it is
Ezra
very,
ratings.
it is very similar. It is very similar to Ezra. Yep. Oh, well, there you go. Okay. Well, and with all that being said, Mike, do you have anything you'd recommend in lieu of Being Flynn?
Boy, do I ever, and I'm very excited for this recommendation. Unfortunately, it's not going to be whatever you've thought of, because I know you haven't seen this film yet.
Okay. Yep.
So this week, I am recommending the 2009 Safdie brothers film, Daddy Longlegs, directed by Benny and Josh Safdie and starring Ronald Bronstein. So we're obviously big fans of the Safdie brothers on this podcast, huge fans of Uncut Gems, Marty Supreme, Good Time. And this was one of their earlier films before they became widely known for those later hits. And the film stars Ronald Bronstein as Lenny, an eccentric divorced dad caring for his 2 sons during their 2 weeks of custody that he gets over them in New York City during the year. And it was loosely inspired by the Safdie brothers' own childhood experiences. And you can see a lot of their distinctive style, even in this very early, rough film. And much like those later Safdie brothers films, it also features a flawed, chaotic, deeply human protagonist. And I think it's interesting connected to Being Flynn, because both films focus on sons struggling to understand complicated fathers, and neither father is portrayed as purely villainous. There's a charisma to both fathers in both of these films, but Daddy Longlegs worked a lot better for me because it felt much more raw and lived in. The Safdies, you can tell there's a lot of specificity to the father character, Lenny, and you can tell that they deeply understand this sort of person, or spend a lot of time around this sort of person. Lenny he's not a bad person, but he's not a good father. He loves his kids, but he's not stable and mature enough to really be the sort of father figure that they need. And stylistically, compared to Being Flynn, Being Flynn often felt filtered through narration and indie film conventions, but Daddy Longlegs felt more immediate and observational. You feel like you're placed inside the chaos, alongside the kids. Whereas in Being Flynn, like I mentioned earlier, I felt distanced from the characters and their journeys because of the narration. So I just think that, Daddy Longlegs, it's a great film about surviving life with a father who, genuinely loves his children, but lacks the maturity and stability required to care for them. And you see the Safdie brothers' style on display, albeit in a rough manner, but that roughness gives the film an authenticity that I found a lot more compelling than Being Flynn. So that's my recommendation this week, Daddy Longlegs.
It sounds really nice. I added it to my watch list.
That's great.
That's a great recommendation for this movie. I really like it. Mine is so much more obvious. I wonder if it occurred to you. I'm going to make the most obvious recommendation and recommend the 2007 Paul Thomas Anderson film, There Will Be Blood. Which also stars Paul Dano, in addition to Daniel Day-Lewis, and is essentially a much darker telling of a very similar story about an overbearing, egotistical, bloviating, blowhard father and the damage that does to his son. I don't really want to say too much about There Will Be Blood, both because of its pedigree as well as because I don't think there's anything to be gained by spoiling any more details than that it is about a fraught father-son relationship. But it's one of the greatest films ever made and certainly one of the absolute best of the aughts decade, and I would strongly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece. I think that might be like my favorite PTA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's definitely mine. Yep. I like PTA, but I do think that it's like a full head above everything else he's ever done, just in terms of its raw power, as well as the artistry on display. And Johnny Greenwood's score in that film is incredible. It's really special.
Really good. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I think that with that, it's time to go over to my favorite segment of the episode and Mike's least favorite segment, our roll. Mike, what are you hoping to roll this week, my friend?
Well, just a note up front, we're actually going to be rolling for 3 weeks from now, because next week we have a special episode about an all-new Robert De Niro film heading straight to Netflix, The Whisper Man. And then the week after, we'll have my special birthday pick. So that being said, I think the time is right for us to roll a real, genuine comedy. I'd love to roll number 20 in our list, which is the 2004 film Meet the Fockers.
I would love to roll Meet the Fockers. I agree. I got nothing else to say.
All right, I'm going to roll now. No such luck. I rolled number 9, the 1982 Martin Scorsese film, The King of Comedy. There we go.
One of my most anticipated films. I'm really excited. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, this is really exciting. I've never seen it. I don't know much about it, but it's a 1982 American satirical black comedy film starring Robert De Niro in his 5th collaboration with Scorsese alongside Jerry Lewis and Sandra Bernhard. It follows an aspiring stand-up comedian whose obsessive desire for fame leads him to target a successful late-night television host, exploring themes of celebrity culture, media illusion, and the pursuit of notoriety. I'm really excited.
Yeah, this film is supposed to be fucking incredible, and I'm excited to get back to Scorsese, and I'm excited to watch something that I think is so tonally inconsistent with most of the other stories that he chooses to tell, but that has a reputation for being a genuine masterpiece. I think it's going to be really cool to see Scorsese take on black comedy earnestly in a way I understand is done very competently. That's pretty cool.
I can't wait for you to just say that you thought it was a drama the entire time.
Oh, yeah, me either. Oh, well, that's really, really exciting. I am really looking forward to discussing The King of Comedy in a few weeks. God, you're going to be a year older when we have that discussion.
And a year wiser.
Yep, that's true. It all happens on that day. There's actually no growth within the year. It's like you just accrue this unrecognized gain in maturity throughout the course of the year, and then you wake up on your birthday and you're like, oh, I get it. Like it's like you've cracked the code. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anything else you want to say?
No, I'm looking forward to the next few weeks of episodes.
Same. It's going to be great. And with that, I guess I will read us out. I would like to thank you, loyal citizens of De Niro Nation, for joining us week in and week out on this crazy journey of ours. I'd like to thank you, Mike, for being my faithful co-host.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah. Didn't know you were waiting for me to say something.
I just thought it would be funny if I did, and I feel like it was, so it really worked out. I think the lengthy pause followed by a return thanks is just about the funniest response I could possibly have hoped for. And I would also like to thank my beautiful and loving wife, Caroline, aka Badcree, friend of the pod, wife of the pod, for drawing our podcast art. And I would like to invite you to write us about literally anything at mike@ourherodeniro.com and check out some stuff about the podcast as well as all of our links at ourherodeniro.com. You can follow Mike and I on Letterboxd. He's Mike back at you, and I'm Mike the Fab. And we would implore you to please subscribe and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. 5 stars only. We really, really need this. Mike's birthday is coming up. Every little bit counts, and it's all going to help in his big growth spurt that he experiences on his birthday. And we look forward to having you all back next week while we discuss the very exciting new Netflix film, The Whisper Man. Thanks, everybody.
All right, see ya.